At a crowded airport, a young black man rushes through the sea of travelers, trying to catch his flight to Boston, where the most important interview of his life awaits. Suddenly, an elderly woman collapses right in front of him from a heart attack. Everyone around ignores her. Standing between chance and conscience, he chooses to turn back and help, knowing he'll miss his flight. He thinks his future is over until the next day, when a single, unexpected phone call changes his life forever. Before we dive deeper into this story, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so I can share more heartwarming stories with you tomorrow. The fluorescent lights of Chicago O'Hare buzzed overhead as Marcus Thompson weaved through the morning crowd, his worn black backpack bouncing against his shoulders. 6:47 a.m. The flight to Boston left at 7:15. "Excuse me, sorry, coming through." His navy button-down shirt, pressed crisp despite its frayed collar, was already damp with sweat. The khaki pants he'd carefully patched last night felt heavier with each step. 27 years old, and everything he owned could fit in that backpack. Gate B, 22, Terminal 2. He glanced at his crumpled boarding pass, then at the departure board overhead. On time, thank God. Marcus picked up his pace, his heart hammering. This wasn't just another flight. This was the flight, the one that could change everything. His phone buzzed. A text from his neighbor, Mrs. Patterson Daniels, asking for you. Told him, "You'll call after your interview. Good luck, baby. You got this." Marcus's chest tightened. He slowed for just a moment, fingers hovering over the screen. Minus. He could picture Danny right now, 14 years old, stuck in that wheelchair by the living room window, probably watching the street like he always did when Marcus left 4 years. 4 years since the accident. 4 years ago, the memory slammed into him without warning, the way it always did. Danny had been 10, just 10 years old, sitting in the back seat while Marcus drove them home from the grocery store. It had been raining. The car ahead of them braked suddenly. Marcus swerved. He remembered the sound, metal crunching glass shattering, and then Danny's scream. The spinal injury was severe. T12 vertebrae. Complete paralysis from the waist down. Marcus had sat in that hospital waiting room for hours, his hands shaking, waiting for their mother to arrive. When she finally walked through those doors, her face was already closed off. He knew, before she even spoke. The doctor laid it out plainly. Your brother will need lifelong care, physical therapy 3 times a week, a motorized wheelchair, home modifications, special education, services. Their father had died 2 years before heart attack at 48. No life, insurance, no savings, just debt. Their mother had stared at Danny through the window of his hospital room. 10 years old, tubes everywhere, unable to move. "I can't do this, Marcus." Her voice cracked. "I don't have the money. I don't have the strength. I'm sorry, Mom. We'll figure it out. We can." "No." She shook her head. "You don't understand. I can't." 3 months later, she was gone. Moved to Ohio with a man Marcus had never met. She sent a card once, Christmas the first year. After that, nothing. Marcus had been 23. He dropped out of college halfway through his junior year. Education degree, unfinished. He took the first job he could find, overnight shifts at a warehouse, loading trucks until his back screamed. Then a second job on weekends, busting tables at a diner. Then a third, whenever he could squeeze in hours, stocking shelves at a corner store. 2 years, 730 days of 3 jobs, ramen, dinners and sleeping 4 hours a night. All to keep Danny in their apartment. All to pay for the therapy insurance wouldn't cover. All to prove their mother wrong. But the worst part wasn't the exhaustion or the poverty. It was watching Danny sit by that window every day, staring out at the neighborhood, kids playing basketball, riding bikes, living the life that had been stolen from him. It was the school district telling Marcus that Danny's needs were too specialized for their program. It was the social workers who talked about alternative placements like Danny was a problem to be shuffled away. 2. It was the look in his brother's eyes when he asked, "Why don't I get to go to school like everyone else?" Marcus had no answer. "Not then, sir." "Boarding pass? Ready." Marcus blinked. He was at the security checkpoint. He fumbled for his boarding pass, hands trembling slightly. "Focus. You're almost there." He'd been researching schools for over a year. Schools that actually cared about kids, like Danny. Places that didn't see disability as an inconvenience, but as just another way of being human. That's when he found Harmony Academy, a small private school in Boston. 70 students, half of them with physical disabilities, the other half from low-income families who couldn't afford better options. Ribble. The mission statement on their website had made his throat tight. Every child deserves a teacher who believes in them. He'd sent his application on a whim. He wasn't even qualified. No degree, no teaching certificate, just 2 years of college and a lot of lived experience. But he'd written the essay in one sitting late at night after his warehouse shift. He wrote about Danny, about watching his brother get turned away from programs, about the teachers who saw the wheelchair before they saw the kid, about how he'd taught Danny math at their kitchen table because the school's resource room was just a closet where they parked kids they didn't want to deal with. He wrote, "These kids don't need pity. They need someone who sees them as whole people, someone who won't give up on them." 2 weeks later, he got an email, then a phone interview, then another, then a video interview, where he demonstrated how he taught Danny fractions using a deck of cards. 6 months of back-and-forth references, background checks, teaching, demonstrations recorded on his phone in Mrs. Patterson's kitchen, because their apartment was too cramped. And then 3 days ago, the call, "Mr. Thompson, we'd like to fly you to Boston for a final in-person interview." Marcus had stared at his phone for a full minute, convinced he'd misheard. "Are you still there?" Principal Hutchins had asked. Yes, I'm here. I'll be there. Thank you." The plane ticket had cost most of what he'd saved. He'd sold his father's old guitar, the only thing of value he owned, to cover a cheap hotel room in Boston and a bus fare back to the airport. His bank account now sat at $4,712. This interview had to work. It had to, because if it did, everything changed. The job came with health insurance, real insurance that would cover Danny's therapy. It came with a salary that, while modest, would mean Marcus could work 1 job instead of 3. It came with the chance to do something that actually mattered. It wasn't just about Marcus anymore. It was about proving that kids like Danny deserved better, that they deserved teachers who wouldn't write them off, who wouldn't see them as burdens. Marcus cleared security and started moving toward his gate. Gate B15, B16, B17. His phone buzzed again. He pulled it out, still walking. Unknown. Number. Boston area code. His stomach flipped. He answered immediately. "Hello, Mr. Thompson. This is Principal Hutchkins from Harmony Academy." Marcus stopped in the middle of the terminal. A man in a business suit nearly collided with him, muttered something sharp, kept walking. Yes, this is Marcus. I wanted to catch you before your flight." Her voice was warm, professional. "Just to confirm, you're still arriving by 10:30 inches. "Absolutely, I'm at O'Hare right now, boarding in about 12 minutes. "Perfect." There was a pause. "I'll be honest with you, Marcus. We've interviewed 8 candidates for this position. All of them have masters, degrees, teaching certificates, years of experience." Marcus's heart sank. "But," Principal Hutchkins continued, "your application essay is still taped to my office wall. The part where you wrote about teaching your brother math at your kitchen table. That's what teaching is. Not degrees, not credentials. It's showing up for a kid when no one else will." Marcus's eyes stung. He blinked hard. "We need someone like you here," she said. "Someone who understands what these kids go through. Not from a textbook, but from life." "Thank you," Marcus managed. His voice came out, rough. "I won't let you down. I know you won't. See you at 10:30. The call ended. Marcus stood there in the middle of O'Hare Airport, travelers rushing past, him in every direction. And, for the first time in 4 years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. "Danny, I'm doing this for you, for us, for every kid who gets told they're not worth the effort." He shoved his phone in his pocket, adjusted his backpack straps, and started running toward Gate B-22. Vo. The departure board showed boarding 10 minutes. He could make this. Marcus wove through the crowd, dodging rolling suitcases and slow-moving families. His breath came hard. The gate was close, now. Gate B-20, B-21. Almost there. Marcus picked up speed, his backpack bouncing hard against his spine. Just a little further. He could see Gate B-22. Now could see the line of passengers shuffling toward the jet bridge. Then he noticed the stairs. A middle-aged white woman in a purple cardigan looked up from her phone as he ran past. Her eyes tracked him, not a casual glance but a hard, assessing look. She clutched her purse tighter against her chest. Marcus kept running. Near Gate B-2, a white couple sat with shopping bags at their feet. The husband saw Marcus coming and immediately reached down, pulling both bags closer. The wife followed his gaze, and her hand went to her designer handbag, pressing it against her side. They both leaned back slightly as if making room, but their eyes never left him. Marcus felt the familiar burn in his chest. Not now. Please, not now. He was 20 feet from Gate B-2 when a TSA officer stepped into his path. Sir, stop right there." A security guard stepped directly into Marcus's path. White guy, early 40 seconds, hand already resting on his radio, his name tag read, Officer Bryant. Marcus skidded to a halt, nearly tripping over his own feet. "What? I'm just trying to catch my flight. I need to see some ID. "Officer," Bryant's voice was flat casual, like he'd said this 1,000 times before. "My flight's boarding right now." Marcus pointed toward Gate B-22, where passengers were still filing through. "I have my boarding pass. ID first." "Why? I already went through security. I'm literally just ID now." The hand on the radio tightened. Marcus's jaw clenched. His heart pounded, not from running anymore, but from the familiar burn of humiliation rising in his chest. He wanted to argue. He wanted to demand why no one else was being stopped. He wanted to ask why a man sprinting to catch a flight was somehow suspicious when he looked like Marcus, but not when he looked like the white businessman who just shoved past both of them without a glance. But he didn't, because he knew how this worked. Marcus slowly reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. He handed over his driver's license. Officer Bryant studied it, took his time, looked at the photo, looked at Marcus, looked at the photo again. "Where you headed?" "Boston. My gate is right there. Please, I'm going to miss my flight." "What's in the backpack?" "Clothes, toiletries." "It's just—" Marcus bit back, the frustration rising in his throat. "It's just my stuff. Open it. You're serious?" The officer's expression didn't change. "Open it." Behind Officer Bryant, Marcus could see the gate agent at B-22 speaking into the microphone. He couldn't hear the words, but he knew what they were. Final boarding call. His hands shook as he unzipped the backpack. He pulled it off his shoulders, opened it wide. One change of clothes, a toothbrush, deodorant, a folder with printed copies of his resume, and teaching philosophy statement, the paperback book he'd been reading on the bus. Officer Bryant poked through it, with one finger slowly, methodically. "What's the purpose of your trip?" "Job, interview. Where a school?" "Harmony Academy." "Uh-huh." Officer Bryant zipped the backpack closed and handed it back. "You can go. No apology, no explanation, just you can go, like he'd done Marcus a favor." Marcus snatched his license back and grabbed his backpack. He glanced at the departures board visible from where he stood. 7:14 a.m. 2 minutes. He'd lost 2 minutes. He ran. The gate agent was already speaking into the microphone. "This is the final boarding call for Flight 237 to Boston Logan. All passengers must be at the gate immediately." "Wait!" Marcus shouted, sprinting the last 30 feet. "I'm here." As he ran past a row of seats, a white woman in business attire jerked her leather tote bag away from him so violently it knocked over her coffee cup. She didn't even look at the spilled coffee. She just stared at Marcus like he'd tried to grab it. "Sorry," Marcus gasped out automatically. Though he'd been nowhere near her bag, she didn't respond, just clutched the toad against her chest and turned away. Marcus reached gate B2, gasping for breath. The gate agent, a young black woman with box braids, looked up and their eyes met for just a second. There was something in her expression, recognition, understanding. "Boarding pass," she said, her voice neutral but not unkind. Marcus handed it over his hand, still shaking from adrenaline and anger and relief. She scanned it. The machine beeped. "You're all set, Mr. Thompson. Straight, down cabins on your left. Better hurry." "Thank you," Marcus breathed. Marcus stopped 3 steps onto the jet bridge. That sound, that awful, desperate sound. He turned back toward the gate area, scanning the rows of seats. Most passengers had already boarded. The waiting area was nearly empty now, just a few stragglers rolling their luggage toward other gates. A janitor emptying trash cans, a businessman typing furiously on his laptop, and there, slumped against a row of chairs near gate B2, was an elderly woman. She was maybe 75, dressed in a simple floral dress and cardigan. Her white hair was pulled back in a loose bun, half undone now. One arm hung limply at her side. The other was clutched against her chest, fingers curled into a claw. Her mouth was open, gasping, And her face, God, her face, was grey, not pale, grey. Marcus's medical training was limited to a weekend CPR course he'd taken 3 years ago when he volunteered at a youth centre. But he didn't need a medical degree to know what he was looking at. This woman was dying. A businessman in a dark suit walked past her, glanced down, and kept walking. A mother with a toddler approached, saw the woman, hesitated. The child pointed. "Mommy, why is that lady?" "Don't stare, honey." The mother gripped her daughter's hand tighter and steered them away. Another man, younger in a Cubs jersey, stopped. He stared at the woman for a full 3 seconds, pulled out his phone, looked at her again, then put the phone away and walked off toward his gate. Nobody stopped. Nobody helped. Marcus looked back at gate B2. The gate agent was checking her computer screen. The jet bridge was still open. He could see a flight attendant inside the doorway, looking down at her watch. His phone was in his hand before he realized he'd pulled it out. 7:13 a.m. The flight was scheduled to leave at 7:15, 90 seconds. The interview is at 10:30. Principal Hutchkins is waiting. Danny is waiting. This is everything you've worked for. 2 years of 3 jobs, every saved dollar, Dad's guitar, all of it leads to this flight. Marcus looked at the woman. Again, she'd slipped further down, her body folding in on itself. That terrible, gasping sound was getting weaker. He looked at everyone's indifferent attitude. He couldn't leave that woman alone. His feet were already moving. "Hey!" Marcus shouted, running back toward the woman. "Hey! Somebody help! Call 911! In!" A few heads turned. Nobody moved. Marcus dropped to his knees beside her. Up close, it was worse. Her lips were blue. Her eyes were half open, unfocused. Her breathing was shallow, irregular, the kind of breathing that meant her body was shutting down. Ma'am, can you hear me?" No response. Marcus looked up. A middle-aged woman in yoga pants was standing 20 feet away, frozen, staring. "Call 911 inches, Marcus yelled at her. Now the woman blinked, fumbled for her phone, but didn't move closer. The businessman Marcus had seen earlier was sitting at a nearby gate. He looked over at the commotion, then deliberately looked back down at his newspaper. "Is someone calling an ambulance?" Marcus shouted to anyone. Everyone redated. The mother with the toddler had stopped, again further away now. "Come on, sweetie," she said to her daughter, pulling her firmly away. "Don't look, honey. Let's go." A teenager in a hoodie walked up, phone already out. For a split second, Marcus thought he was going to help. Then he saw the red recording light. The kid was filming. "Are you serious?" Marcus's voice cracked, put the phone down, and called 911. The teenager stepped back, but kept filming, angling for a better shot. Behind Marcus, the airport system crackled to life. "This is the final boarding call for Flight 237 with service to Boston Logan. All ticketed passengers must be at Gate B22 immediately. This is the final call." Marcus's chest seized. Final call. He looked at the jet bridge. The gate agent was speaking into her radio. Now, probably asking the flight attendant to close the door. He looked at his phone. 7:14 a.m. He looked at the woman dying in front of him. 60 seconds, maybe less. Everything he'd worked for, every overnight shift, every double, every time he'd chosen ramen over real food so he could save another $10. It was all right there, 50 meters away. 1 minute, Danny. The interview, principal, Hutchkins, the job, the insurance, everything. The woman made a sound, not a gasp this time, more like a whimper. Her hand twitched against her chest. Marcus thought of Danny, sitting in that hospital bed 4 years ago, tubes everywhere, completely alone, because their mother had already made up her mind to leave. He thought of the school district administrator who'd told him Di's needs were too complex and maybe he'd be more comfortable in a special placement. He thought of every person who'd looked at his brother and seen a burden instead of a kid. He thought of the businessman who'd walked past this woman without even breaking stride. Someone has to stop. Someone has to be the person who gives a damn. Marcus pressed 2 fingers against the woman's neck, searching for a pulse. It was there, thready, irregular, but there. "Ma'am, stay with me," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "You're going to be okay. Help is coming." He looked up. Again. The woman in yoga pants was still, standing there, phone pressed to her ear. Now. Finally. "Yes. O'Hare Airport," she was saying. "Terminal 2, near Gate B2. I don't know, an older woman. She's collapsed. Tell them she's not breathing." "Well," Marcus called out. "Possible heart attack or stroke. Her pulse is weak. With tweeze." The woman repeated his words into the phone. The PA system crackled again. "Flight 237 to Boston is now closed. All passengers must be on board." Marcus heard the jet bridge door clang shut. His throat tightened. His eyes burned. It's done. It's over. But his hands kept moving. He tilted the woman's head slightly, making sure her airway was clear. He took off his navy button-down shirt, the one he'd ironed so carefully last night, and draped it over her like a blanket. She was shaking now, her body going into shock. "You're not alone," Marcus said quietly, wrapping his hand around her cold, claw-like fingers. "I'm right here. You're not alone." Her eyes fluttered. For just a second, they focused on him. There was terror in them, and confusion, and something else. Recognition, maybe not of him specifically, but of the fact that someone had stopped, someone had stayed. "Help is coming," Marcus said again. He squeezed her hand gently. "Just hold on." Around them, the airport kept moving, travelers rushing to their gates, announcements echoing overhead, the janitor pushing his cart past them, not even looking. The teenager in the hoodie was still filming. Marcus didn't have the energy to care anymore. 7 minutes. That's how long it took for the paramedics to arrive. 7 minutes of Marcus kneeling on the industrial carpet, monitoring the woman's pulse, keeping her head stable, talking to her in a low, steady voice, even though she couldn't respond. 7 minutes of watching his future slip away with every passing second. When the EMTs finally rushed up with their equipment, one of them, a black man in his 40s, gave Marcus a quick assessing look. "You did good, son," he said as they moved in to take over. "You saved her life." Marcus stood up slowly. His knees creaked. His hands were shaking. His shirt was still draped over the woman as they lifted her onto the stretcher. He watched them wheel her away, watched the small crowd that had gathered start to disperse, watched the airport return to normal as if nothing had happened. Marcus stood in the empty gate area for a long time after the paramedics left. The departure board flickered, departed. His legs felt heavy, his mind felt blank around him. The airport hummed with its usual chaos, announcements, rolling luggage, footsteps, but it all sounded distant, like he was underwater. He pulled out his phone with numb fingers. 7:23 a.m. He should call Principal Hutchkins, explain what happened, beg for another chance. But what would he say? I missed the flight because I stopped to help someone. Would she even believe him? Would it matter? Marcus opened his call log, stared at the Boston number. His thumb hovered over it. He couldn't do it. Not yet. Instead, he walked through Terminal 2, past the shops and restaurants opening for the morning rush, past Gate B-22, where a cleaning crew was already prepping for the next flight, past security, where a different TSA officer waved travelers through without a second glance. He took the blue line back into the city, sat in a corner seat backpack, clutched on his lap, staring at nothing. The train rocked and swayed. Passengers got on and off. Nobody looked at him. By the time he reached his stop, it was almost 9 a.m. The walk to his apartment building took 12 minutes. 12 minutes of replaying everything in his head. The woman's grey face, the sound of the jet bridge door closing, Principal Hutchins's voice on the phone. We need someone like you here. Needed past tense now. Marcus climbed the 3 flights of stairs to his apartment. Each step felt like lifting concrete. He fumbled with his keys at the door, dropped them, picked them up, tried again. The door swung open before he could get the key in. Danny sat there in his wheelchair, eyes wide with surprise. Marcus, what are you? Why aren't you in Boston? Marcus froze. His brother's face, confused, worried, hopeful, was too much. The weight of the entire morning crashed down on him all at once. His knees buckled. He dropped his backpack and sank down onto the floor right there in the doorway, his back against the frame. And then, for the first time in 4 years, not when their father died, not when their mother left, not during any of the endless nights working 3 jobs, Marcus broke, he cried. Not quiet tears, not dignified sadness. He sobbed deep, shaking, gasping sobs that tore out of his chest like something physical being ripped away. Marcus. Danny wheeled forward quickly, nearly running over the backpack. What happened? Are you hurt? Marcus shook his head, but he couldn't speak. His face was in his hands, his shoulders heaved. Talk to me, man, please. You're scaring me. I'm sorry. Marcus finally choked out. Danny, I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? The interview. I missed it. His voice broke again. I missed the flight. There was a pause. Then Danny said quietly, What do you mean you missed it? Marcus dragged his hands down his face. His eyes were swollen, burning. There was a woman at the airport. She collapsed. Nobody helped her. Nobody even stopped. And I tried to make the flight. Danny, I swear, I tried. But she was dying. And I couldn't just... He couldn't finish. The words dissolved into another wave of tears. You stopped to help her, Danny said. It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded miserably. The paramedic said, I saved her life, but I lost the flight. And now, God, Danny, now what? That was it. That was our shot. I sold Dad's guitar. I spent everything we had. 2 years of saving, and I blew it. I blew everything. His voice rose, cracking with desperation. They're not going to reschedule. Why would they? I'm just some guy with no degree who couldn't even show up on time. They have 8 other candidates with master's degrees, and actual teaching certificates. And, Marcus, and you needed this. You needed the insurance. You needed me to actually succeed at something for once instead of just Marcus. Danny's voice cut through the spiral. Marcus looked up. His brother was leaning forward in his wheelchair, both hands gripping the armrests. His face was serious, but there was something else in his eyes, something steady. "Stop," Danny said. "Danny, I stop apologizing." Di's voice was firm. "You did the right thing." Marcus let out a bitter, broken laugh. "The right thing. I lost everything. We're back to square one where you saved someone's life. That doesn't pay for your physical therapy." The words came out harsher than Marcus intended. He immediately regretted them. But Danny didn't flinch. "No," Danny said quietly. "It doesn't." They sat there in the doorway, Marcus on the floor, Danny in his chair, and the silence stretched between them. Finally, Danny spoke again. "You know what I think about every single day?" Marcus shook his head, unable to look at him. "I think about that day, the accident, you swerving to avoid that car, the crash." Danny's voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the tremor underneath. "I think about how you were driving, how it was raining, how everything happened so fast, Danny. And I think about how you've spent 4 years blaming yourself, working yourself to death, giving up college, giving up your life, all because you think you owe me something." Marcus's throat closed up. "I do owe you. It was my fault. If I'd been more careful, it was an accident." Di's voice was louder now. "An accident, Marcus. You didn't choose this. I didn't choose this. It just happened. And you know what? I've never once blamed you." Marcus finally looked up. His brother's eyes were wet too. "You're the one who stayed," Danny continued. "When Mum left, when everyone else said I was too much work, too complicated, too expensive. You stayed. You've been showing up for me every single day for 4 years. You think I don't see that? But this job would have been great. Yeah, the insurance, the salary, the chance to help other kids like me. I know how much it meant to you." Danny wheeled closer until he was right in front of Marcus. "But you know what else I know?" Marcus waited. "I know that my brother is the kind of person who stops when someone needs help, even when it costs him everything, even when nobody else will." Di's voice cracked. "Do you have any idea how proud that makes me?" "Proud?" Marcus's voice came out strangled. "I failed Danny. I failed you." "No." Danny shook his head fiercely. "You showed me who you are, again, like you always do." He reached out and gripped Marcus's shoulder. "That woman at the airport, she went home to her family tonight because of you. Maybe she has kids, grandkids, a whole life she gets to keep living. And yeah, you missed your flight. But Marcus," Danny's voice softened, "you didn't miss who you are." Marcus couldn't speak, his chest HD. "I've watched people look at me my whole life," Danny said. "I've seen them do the math in their heads. Is this kid worth the effort? Is he worth stopping for? Worth accommodating? Worth caring about?" He paused. "Most people decide I'm not. But you've spent 4 years proving that I am. That people like me matter." "You do matter," Marcus said hoarsely. "I know, because you taught me that." Danny squeezed his shoulder. "And today you taught someone else the same thing. That woman's life mattered more than your flight. You chose to see her, to stop, That's who you are. Marcus wiped his face with the back of his hand. But what do we do now? I don't know, Danny admitted, but we'll figure it out like we always do. He smiled. Small, sad, but real. And, Marcus, I need you to hear this. I would rather have a brother who stops for people than a brother with a fancy teaching job who doesn't. Every single time. Marcus closed his eyes. The tears were still coming, but different now, quieter. I'm scared, he whispered. I'm so tired, Danny. And I don't know what comes next. I know, me too. Di's hand stayed on his shoulder. But we're still here, both of us. That counts for something. They stayed like that for a while. Danny in his wheelchair, Marcus on the floor until footsteps echoed in the hallway. Danny, honey, I brought some. Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway, a casserole dish wrapped in aluminum foil in her hands. She stopped dead. Her eyes went wide. Marcus, what in the world you're supposed to be? Aren't you supposed to be in Boston? She set the casserole down on the small table by the door so fast it rattled. Her hand flew to her chest. Lord have mercy. What happened? Are you hurt? Did something happen to the plane? Marcus tried to speak, but couldn't get words out. He's okay, Mrs. P., Danny said quickly. He missed his flight, missed his missus. Patterson looked between them, taking in Marcus. Swollen eyes, his wrinkled clothes, the defeated slump of his shoulders. Her expression shifted from shock to concern. Baby, what happened? Marcus finally found his voice. There was a woman at the airport. She collapsed. I stopped to help her and his voice cracked. I lost the flight. Mrs. Patterson's hand stayed pressed to her chest. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then her face crumpled with understanding. Oh, sweetheart, she knelt down beside Marcus, her knees creaking. Oh, baby, you saved someone. I lost everything, Marcus whispered. No, Mrs. Patterson reached out and cooped his face in both hands, the way his own mother used to do back before everything fell apart. No, honey, you didn't lose who you are. The kindness in her voice broke something loose in Marcus. He leaned forward, and she wrapped her arms around him, holding him tight, while his shoulders shook. It's okay, she murmured. Let it out. You let it all out. Danny wheeled closer and put his hand on Marcus's back. And there, in the doorway of their cramped apartment, the three of them sat together, the only family any of them really had left. After a while, Mrs. Patterson pulled back and looked at Marcus with fierce determination. Now you listen to me. I don't know what happens next with that job, but I know this. You did right. You hear me? You did right. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. And we're going to get through this. She stood up with a grunt, brushing off her knees. First, you're going to eat. I made extra meatloaf, and I won't hear a word of argument. Yes, ma'am, Marcus managed. As Danny wheeled toward the hallway, he looked back at Marcus. Hey, for what it's worth, I've always trusted your decisions. Every single one, even the hard ones, especially the hard ones, Marcus realized. He stood up slowly, picked up his backpack, and followed his brother inside. The next morning, Marcus woke up on the couch. Danny was still asleep in the bedroom. Marcus could hear the soft rhythm of his breathing through the thin walls. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the muffled sounds of the city waking up outside. Marcus sat up slowly, his back stiff from the sagging couch cushions. For a moment, He'd forgotten. Then it all came rushing back. The airport, the woman, the closed gate, everything. He checked his phone. 8:47 a.m. 3 missed calls from a Boston number. No voicemails. Principal Hutchkins had tried to reach him yesterday afternoon. He'd stared at her calls when they came in, unable to answer. What could he possibly say? Marcus scrolled through his bank app. $4,712. The number hadn't changed, but seeing it this morning felt different, heavier. He needed to figure out what came next. Find more hours at the warehouse. Pick up extra shifts at the diner. Start over. His stomach growled. Marcus dragged himself off the couch and opened the tiny kitchenette cabinet. 2 packets of instant ramen sat on the shelf next to a half-empty jar of peanut butter and a box of Danny's breakfast cereal. He filled a pot with water and set it on the stove. While he waited for the water to boil, Marcus leaned against the counter and closed his eyes. Mrs. Patterson's words from last night echoed in his head. You did right, but doing right didn't pay the bills. It didn't cover Danny's therapy. It didn't fix the fact that Marcus had torpedoed the best opportunity they'd ever had. The water started to bubble. Marcus tore open the ramen packet and dropped the noodles in, watching them soften and separate. His phone rang. Marcus jumped, nearly knocking the pot off the stove. He grabbed his phone, expecting to see the Boston number again. Unknown caller. Chicago area code. Probably spam or a debt collector. He almost didn't answer, but something made him swipe to accept. Hello, is this Marcus Thompson? A woman's voice. Professional. Crisp. Not a robocall. Yes, this is Marcus. Mr. Thompson. My name is Jennifer Carver. I'm calling on behalf of Mrs. Eleanor Hayes. Marcus's mind went blank. I'm sorry, who? Mrs. Eleanor Hayes. There was a pause, as if the name should mean something to him. She asked me to reach out to you directly. I don't know anyone named Eleanor Hayes. She's the woman you helped at O'Hare Airport 2 days ago at Gate B2. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. The woman who collapsed. Yes, Mrs. Hayes would like to meet with you in person to thank you. Is she? Marcus's voice caught. Is she okay? She's doing very well, thanks to you. Jennifer's tone softened slightly. The doctor said, if you hadn't acted when you did, the outcome would have been very different. Marcus exhaled a weight he didn't know he'd been carrying, lifting slightly. I'm glad she's okay. That's all I needed to know. She doesn't need to thank me. I'm afraid Mrs. Hayes is quite insistent. There was a hint of amusement in Jennifer's voice. Now, she'd like to meet with you today, if possible. At her office, 3:00 p.m. Her office? Yes. The Atlantic Airways, corporate headquarters, downtown Michigan Avenue. Marcus blinked. Atlantic Airways, the airline. That's correct. Wait, I don't understand. Why would she want to meet at Mrs. Hayes will explain. Everything when you arrive? Jennifer's voice was polite but firm. Can I confirm you'll be there at 3:00 p.m.? Marcus looked around his cramped apartment at the pot of ramen on the stove, at his backpack still sitting by the door where he dropped it yesterday. What did he have to lose? Yeah, he said slowly. Yeah, I can be there. Excellent. I'll text you the address and security. Instructions. Just give your name at the front desk and they'll direct you to the executive floor. Executive floor. Mrs. Hayes is looking forward to meeting you, Mr. Thompson. The line went dead. Marcus stood there, phone still pressed to his ear, staring at nothing. What the hell just happened? His phone buzzed. A text from the same number, Atlantic Airways, HQ, 225 North Michigan Avenue, 42nd floor. Security will be expecting you at 2:45 p.m. Business casual attire. J. Carver. Business casual. Marcus looked down at his faded t-shirt and sweatpants. His only dress clothes were the navy shirt he draped over the woman, which was probably still at the hospital, and the khaki pants, which needed washing. Marcus. Danny's voice came from the bedroom. "You okay out there?" Marcus turned off the stove and walked to the bedroom door. Danny was sitting up in bed, rubbing his eyes. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just something weird just happened. Weird how the woman from the airport, the one I helped, she wants to meet me." Danny's eyebrows shot up. "Seriously?" Her assistant just called. "She wants me to come to some office downtown this afternoon." "That's good, right?" Danny wheeled closer. "Maybe she wants to give you a reward or something, help with the flight costs." Marcus hadn't thought of that. His chest tightened with a complicated mix of hope and shame. He didn't save her for money, but God, they needed it. "I don't know what she wants," Marcus said, "but I guess I'm about to find out." At 2:35 p.m., Marcus stood outside a gleaming skyscraper on Michigan Avenue. He'd borrowed a white button-down shirt from their neighbor's son, a kid who'd gone off to college and left half his wardrobe behind. The shirt was slightly too big, but it was clean and wrinkle-free. His khaki pants were freshly washed. His shoes were the same, ones he'd worn to the airport, scuffed but presentable. The Atlantic Airways logo stretched across the top of the building in huge letters. Marcus tilted, his head back, trying to see the top, floors, and felt dizzy. "What am I doing here?" He pushed through the revolving doors. The lobby was all marble and glass, with floor-to-ceiling windows that let in streams of afternoon sunlight. People in expensive suits moved through, the space with purpose, their shoes clicking on the polished floor. Marcus approached the security desk, feeling massively out of place. "Can I help you?" The guard looked up from his computer. "I'm here to see." Marcus pulled out his phone to check the text. "Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, I have an appointment at 3:00 p.m. My name is Marcus Thompson." The guard typed something, then nodded. "You're on the list. 42nd floor. Elevators are to your left. Someone will meet you when you arrive." "Thank you." Marcus walked to the elevator bank, his heart pounding. The elevator opened immediately empty. He stepped inside and pressed 42. The doors closed. As the elevator climbed, Marcus caught his reflection in the polished metal walls. He looked terrified. "She just wants to thank you. That's all. 5 minutes, maybe 10. Then you go home." The elevator dinged. 42nd floor. The doors opened onto a reception area that looked like something from a magazine. Modern furniture. Expensive art on the walls. A massive window overlooking the Chicago skyline. A woman in a grey suit stood up from behind a sleek desk. "Mr. Thompson." "Yes, I'm Jennifer Carver." We spoke on the phone. She smiled and extended her hand. "Mrs. Hayes is expecting you. Right this way." Marcus followed her down a hallway lined with framed photos, old planes, smiling employees, awards and accolades. His palms were sweating. Jennifer stopped in front of a large wooden door. "Go ahead, in. She's waiting." Marcus hesitated. Can I ask, who is she exactly? Jennifer's smile widened slightly. She'll want to tell you herself. She knocked once, then opened the door. Mr. Thompson is here, Mrs. Hayes. A voice from inside, warm, strong, familiar, somehow said, "Send him in." Marcus took a breath and stepped through the door. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Lake Michigan, the water stretching out like liquid silver under the afternoon sun. The furniture was modern but warm. A large mahogany desk, leather chairs, bookshelves lined with aviation history and business volumes. Photos covered one wall. Vintage, aircraft ribbon-cutting ceremonies, newspaper headlines, and standing by the window, backlit by the sunlight, was the woman from the airport. She looked completely different now. Her white hair was styled in an elegant twist. She wore a tailored navy blazer and cream blouse. Diamond studs glinted at her ears. Her posture was straight, confident, nothing like the crumpled, gasping figure Marcus had knelt beside 2 days ago, but her eyes were the same, sharp, intelligent, and right now focused entirely on him. Mr. Thompson. Her voice was stronger than he remembered, but there was warmth in it. Please come in, sit. Marcus moved forward on unsteady legs and lowered himself into one of the leather chairs facing her desk. She walked over and sat across from him, not behind the desk, but in the chair beside his, close enough to be personal. "I'm Eleanor Hayes." She extended her hand. Marcus shook it. Her grip was firm, steady. "I remember you from the airport. I imagine you do." A small smile played at her lips, though I wasn't at my best that day. How are you feeling? Alive, thanks to you." Eleanor's expression grew serious. "The doctors told me I had a cardiac episode if I'd been alone for even a few more minutes." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "I'm glad you're okay. Are you?" Eleanor leaned back slightly, studying him. "Because from what I understand, helping me cost you quite a bit." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know what you mean. Don't you?" Eleanor's gaze didn't waver. "You missed your flight to Boston, the final interview at Harmony Academy, a teaching position you'd worked 2 years to qualify for." Marcus's stomach dropped. "How do you—" "I had someone look into it." Eleanor said it matter-of-factly, without apology. "After I woke up in the hospital and learned what happened, I wanted to know who you were, who the young man was that stopped when dozens of people walked past me. You investigated me." Marcus's voice came out, sharper than he intended. "I did." Eleanor didn't flinch. "Your full name was on the paramedic report. From there, it wasn't difficult. I know you were on flight 237 to Boston. I know about the interview. I know about your brother Daniel and the accident 4 years ago. I know you work 3 jobs and dropped out of college to support him." Marcus stood up abruptly. "That's you had no right." "You're absolutely correct." Eleanor remained seated calm. "I had no right, but I needed to understand something." "Understand what? Why you stopped?" Eleanor's voice was quiet now. "You had everything on the line. Your future, your brother's future. 1 minute until your flight closed, and you turned around." Marcus clenched his fists. "What did you expect me to do? Let you die? Most people would have." Eleanor stood, now, too moving to face him directly. "Do you know how many people walked past me that morning?" Marcus said nothing. "The paramedics estimated at least 40. 40. People saw me collapsed on the floor and kept walking. Some looked, some hesitated. One teenager filmed me. Her voice hardened slightly, but only one person stopped. Only one person sacrificed everything to help a complete stranger. I didn't do it for recognition, Marcus said tightly. I know you didn't. That's exactly my point. Eleanor moved back to her chair and sat down. Please sit. Let me explain why you're here. Marcus hesitated, then slowly sank back into his seat. Eleanor folded her hands in her lap. Do you know what Atlantic Airways is? An airline. The third largest in the country, I think. That's right. I founded it at 32 years ago with one plane and a dream. Eleanor's eyes drifted to the photos on the wall. Built it from nothing. We now operate over 400 aircraft, employ 17,000 people, and serve 60 million passengers a year. Marcus didn't know what to say to that. I've spent 3 decades building this company, Eleanor continued, focused on profit margins, market share, efficiency. We've been very successful. By those metrics, she paused. But somewhere along the way I forgot something important. What's that? That business is about people, not just passengers or employees or shareholders. People. Eleanor looked at him. You reminded me of that. I don't understand. For the past year, I've been developing a new initiative, community outreach, a program to help underserved communities, families who can't afford to travel for medical care, students who need transportation for educational opportunities, people with disabilities who face barriers in aviation. Marcus, attention sharpened. I've hired consultants, reviewed proposals, interviewed dozens of candidates to run the program. Eleanor shook her head. All of them had impressive resumes, MBAs from top schools, years of non-profit experience, but something was missing. I couldn't put my finger on it until 2 days ago, lying on that airport floor. She leaned forward. They understood the program as a concept, but none of them understood it as a calling. None of them had looked at someone everyone else ignored and said, "This person matters. This person is worth stopping for." Marcus's throat tightened. "I want you to run it," Eleanor said simply. The words hung in the air. Marcus blinked. "What?" "I'm offering you the position of Director of Community Outreach for Atlantic Airways." That's Marcus let out a startled laugh. "That's insane. I'm not qualified. I don't have a degree. I've never run anything. I'm just what?" Eleanor's voice was sharp now. "Just someone who works 3 jobs to support his disabled brother. Just someone who spent 2 years saving for a chance to help kids like Daniel. Just someone who gave up his future to save a stranger's life. That doesn't make me qualified to run a corporate program. It makes you exactly the person I need." Eleanor stood and walked to her desk, pulling out a folder. "Leadership isn't about degrees, Marcus. It's about character. It's about making the right choice when it costs you everything." She opened the folder and slid it across to him. "You stopped when everyone else walked past. That's leadership. You sacrificed your interview, your future without hesitation. That's character. You didn't ask for a reward. You didn't call the press. You just helped and walked away. That's integrity." Marcus stared at the papers. They were filled with bullet points, salary figures, benefit descriptions. The numbers blurred. "I don't know anything about running a program like this, he said weakly. You know the most important thing. You understand the people we're trying to serve. You've lived it. You are living it. Eleanor sat down again. I can teach you business operations. I can't teach someone to care the way you do. But Marcus, Eleanor's voice gentled, I've spent my entire life building this company. And you know what I realized? Lying on that floor, unable to breathe, I'd built something successful, but soulless. We move millions of people every year, but we'd stop seeing them as people. They're just revenue, statistics, profit margins. She paused, her eyes bright. You looked at me and saw a human being who needed help. That's what this program needs. Someone who sees people, not problems to solve or metrics to hit. Marcus shook his head, overwhelmed. I was supposed to be a teacher. That's what I've been working toward, and you still can be. Eleanor leaned forward. Just on a larger scale, this program will help hundreds of families, students who can't afford college visits, parents who need to travel for their child's medical treatment, people with disabilities who've been told aviation isn't for them. Danny. She was describing Danny, and every kid like him. I can't. Marcus's voice cracked. This is too much. I'm just a guy who works at a warehouse. No. Eleanor's voice was firm. You're the man who turned around when it mattered most. You're the man who chose humanity over opportunity. That's who I need. Marcus looked down at the folder again. The salary listed was more than he made in a year at all three jobs combined. The benefits included full health coverage, the kind that would cover Danny's therapy completely. Why me? He whispered. Really? Why? Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. Because I've spent 32 years building an empire. I've made billions. I've won awards. I've been on magazine covers. She looked out the window at the lake. But 2 days ago, lying on that floor, do you know what I thought? Marcus shook his head. I thought I'm going to die, surrounded by people who are too busy to care. And then you stopped. You, a complete stranger who had every reason to keep running. You stopped. She turned, back to him, her eyes wet. You reminded me what matters, not the planes, not the profit, the people. She stood and walked to the wall of photos, pointed to one, a younger Eleanor standing in front of her first plane, beaming. I started this company because I wanted to connect people, to make the world smaller, to help families see each other across distances. Her voice was steady. Now, somewhere along the way, I forgot that you reminded me, and now I want to build something that honors that reminder, but I can't do it without someone who actually believes it. She turned to face him fully. Business is supposed to serve people, Marcus, not the other way around. I forgot that. You never did. Marcus sat there, the folder heavy in his lap, his mind spinning. Everything he'd wanted. A steady job, health insurance for Danny, the chance to help kids like his brother. It was all here. Not in Boston teaching 70 students, but in Chicago helping hundreds of families. I don't know if I can do this, he said honestly. Neither do I. Eleanor smiled slightly. But I'm willing to bet on you, if you're willing to try. Marcus looked up at her, at this woman who'd built an empire, who'd nearly died, who was now offering him a chance he'd never imagined. My brother, he said slowly. If I take this, I need to. Know he'll be taken care of. The insurance, the therapy, fully covered for him and anyone in your household. Eleanor didn't hesitate. Marcus closed his eyes. Open them. Okay, he said. Okay, I'll try. Elilana smiled, warm, genuine, relieved. She extended her hand. Welcome to Atlantic Airways, Mr. Thompson. Marcus stood and shook, her hand still half convinced he was dreaming. One more thing, Eleanor said. I need you to promise me something. What? Don't ever stop being the person who turns around, no matter how successful this program becomes, no matter how many people you help. Stay, the man who chose humanity over his own future. That's the only qualification that matters. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Now, Eleanor said, her tone shifting to business. Let's get you started. You have a program to build. 6 months later, Marcus stood in front of a glass door on the 15th floor of Atlantic Airways headquarters. The words etched into the frosted glass read, Community Outreach Initiative Director Marcus Thompson. He still wasn't used to seeing his name there. Marcus pushed through the door into an open office space. 15 desks filled the room, each occupied by someone typing, talking on the phone, or reviewing case files. The walls were covered with maps, flight schedules, and photos. Families reunited, students visiting colleges, patients arriving for treatment. Morning, boss, called out Sarah, his deputy director. She was a former social worker with 20 years of experience and had taught Marcus more in 6 months than any business school could have. Morning. Marcus set his coffee down on his desk, an actual desk with his name on a placard. He still got a small thrill, seeing it. We just confirmed the Martinez family. Sarah continued walking, over with a tablet. Father needs emergency heart surgery in Houston. Mom and 3 kids flying out tomorrow, all covered. Hotel vouchers arranged through our partner network. Marcus nodded, reviewing the details on screen. Good. Make sure they have ground transportation to the hospital and check if the kids need anything, books, tablets, for the weight already on it. Sarah smiled. You know, when Eleanor first told me about this program, I thought it was just good PR, but you actually care about these details. They're not details, they're people. I know. Sarah's expression softened. That's why this works. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Danny. Physical therapy went great. Today, therapist says, I'm making real progress. Love you, man. Marcus smiled and typed back, proud of you. Home by 6. The scholarship program Eleanor had established through Atlantic Airways had covered not just Danny's therapy, but also enrolled him in an adaptive sports program. Last month, Danny had played wheelchair basketball for the first time. Marcus had never seen his brother smile so wide. Marcus, another team member, James, approached with a stack of folders. PR wants to schedule a meeting with you. Something about a promotional campaign. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. What kind of campaign? They want to do a feature story. Your background, the airport incident, how you started the program. James shrugged. Human interest angle. They think it'll be good for the company. Image. Tell them no. You sure, Eleanor? Signed off on it. Then I'll talk to Eleanor. Marcus's voice was firm. This program isn't about me. It's about the families we help. James nodded and left. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You know PR isn't going to let this go easy. You're a good story. I'm not a story. Marcus pulled up the next case file on his computer. I'm just doing the job. Underscore, 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 underscore. By early afternoon, the PR team had escalated. Marcus sat in a conference room, across from 3 people in, expensive of suits, 2 PR executives and a marketing director. Mr. Thompson, we understand your hesitation. The lead, PR executive, a woman named Patricia, said smoothly, but think of the impact. Your story could inspire. My story isn't for sale, Marcus interrupted. Patricia blinked. We're not selling anything. We're sharing an authentic narrative about how the company looks good because I helped someone. Marcus leaned forward. That's exactly what selling is. The marketing director jumped in. We're talking about a tasteful video, maybe 2 minutes. Your voice, your words. We wouldn't sensationalize. No, Marcus. Patricia's tone shifted, becoming more direct. Atlantic Airways has invested significantly in this program in you. Little publicity would help justify that. Investment to shareholders. Then show them our numbers. Marcus pulled out his phone and brought up the program. Dashboard. 214 families helped in 6 months. 43 students transported to college interviews. 12 of them got accepted and are enrolled this fall. 27 medical transport cases. Average satisfaction rating 4.9 out of 5. He set the phone on the table. Those numbers justify the investment. My personal story doesn't need to be part of it. Patricia exchanged glances with her colleagues. Eleanor is going to want to discuss this with you. Then I'll discuss it with her. Marcus stood. Is there anything else? The silence that followed was answer enough. Marcus left the conference room and headed back to his office. Sarah was waiting by his desk. How'd it go? About as well as expected, Marcus sighed. They're going to escalate to Eleanor. And you think she'll back you up? Marcus paused. He'd been working closely with Eleanor for 6 months now. Weekly meetings, strategic planning sessions, late-night calls when a difficult case came through. She'd become more than a boss. She'd become a mentor. But he also knew she ran a business. I hope so, he said honestly. His phone rang. Eleanor's personal line. Marcus answered. I assume you heard. Eleanor's laugh came through, warm and amused. Patricia called me approximately 90 seconds ago. She's quite frustrated with you. I'm sorry if I don't apologize. Eleanor's tone shifted to serious. You were right to say no. This program works because it's not about publicity. The families trust us because they know we're not using them for marketing. Marcus felt tension. He didn't know he'd been holding release from his shoulders. Thank you. Besides, Eleanor continued, I didn't hire you to be a spokesman. I hired you to help people. Keep doing that. After they hung up, Marcus sat at his desk, for a moment looking at the photos on the wall. The Martinez family, the Johnson twins, who'd gotten to visit their grandmother before she passed. The Chen family, whose daughter had received life-saving treatment in Boston. This is why I'm here, he reminded himself. Not for recognition, for them. Underscore, 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 underscore. At 4:30 p.m., Marcus left the office and headed to O'Hare Airport. One of his team members, Kevin, a logistics coordinator, was flying back from a site visit in Denver, and Marcus had offered to pick him up. He could have sent a car service, but Marcus preferred to stay, connected to the work, to the people. Plus, he hadn't been back to O'Hare since that morning, 6 months ago. The airport looked the same. Same crowd, same chaos, same fluorescent lights, buzzing overhead. Marcus made his way through Terminal 1 to the arrivals area, checking his phone for Kevin's gate information. Gate B17. Kevin's flight was landing in 20 minutes. Marcus decided to wait near the gate rather than at baggage claim. He walked through the terminal, and with each step, memories surfaced. The security checkpoint where he'd been stopped, the gate agent who'd let him through at the last second. The sound of that final boarding call. He reached the B concourse and slowed his pace. There, Gate B21, the same row of seats where Eleanor had collapsed, where dozens of people had walked past, where Marcus had made the choice that changed everything. Marcus started to walk toward it, pulled by something he couldn't name. Then he heard it. "Sir, I need you to step aside." Marcus turned. 20 feet away, near Gate B19, a TSA officer had stopped a young black man, maybe 19 or 20, who was clearly trying to catch a flight. The kid's backpack was open, his belongings spread across the table. "I already went through security." The young man was saying, his voice tight with stress, "I'm going to miss my flight. I need to verify your ID again." The TSA officer, white, middle-aged, same authoritative tone Marcus remembered, was taking his time examining the kid's driver's license. Other passengers walked by, glancing over but not stopping. Marcus felt something hot and familiar ignite in his chest. He walked over. "Excuse me." Marcus kept his voice calm but firm. Is there a problem?" The TSA officer looked up, annoyed. "This doesn't concern you, sir. I'm Director of Community Outreach for Atlantic Airways." Marcus pulled out his company ID badge, the one with his photo and title in bold letters. "This young man appears to have already cleared security. Why is he being detained?" The officer's expression flickered. "Random, additional screening, random." Marcus looked at the young man, saw the exhaustion and frustration in his eyes, the way his shoulders were tensed against humiliation. "What's your name?" "Terrell," the kid said quietly. "Where are you headed?" "Terrell. New York. College visit. My flight leaves in 8 minutes." Marcus looked back at the TSA officer. Has he done anything to warrant additional screening? Set off any alarms? Acted suspiciously. The officer's jaw tightened. "I don't need to. Explain my... Actually, you do." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Airport Security Management and Atlantic Airways legal team. We have a zero-tolerance policy for racial profiling, and this certainly appears to qualify." He started dialing. The TSA officer stared at him for a long moment, then shoved Terrell's belongings back into his backpack. "He's clear. Go." Terrell grabbed his bag and looked at Marcus with wide eyes. "Thank you. I thank you. Go catch your flight," Marcus said. "Good luck with your college visit." Terrell took off running toward his gate. The TSA officer glared at Marcus. "You think you're some kind of hero?" "No," Marcus said quietly. "I just think people deserve to be treated with dignity." He walked away before the officer could respond. His hands were shaking anger, adrenaline, the echo of his own experience 6 months ago. But there was something else, too. Something that felt like the closing of a circle. Marcus made his way to gate B-17 just as passengers started deplaning. Kevin emerged. A few minutes later, pulling a carry-on. "Marcus, you didn't have to come all the way here." "I wanted to." Marcus took Kevin's bag. "How was Denver?" They talked as they walked back through the terminal, about the Denver outreach event, about families they'd helped, about plans for expansion. But Marcus' mind was partially elsewhere. As they passed gate B2 again, Marcus slowed. "Give me a second," he told Kevin. He walked over to the row of seats where Eleanor had fallen. Someone had left a newspaper on one of the chairs. A family sat nearby, kids playing on tablets while parents dozed. Nothing marked this spot as special. Nothing indicated that 6 months ago a life had been saved here, that a decision had been made that changed everything. But Marcus knew. He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering the gasping sound, the faces of people walking past, the jet bridge, door closing, the weight of that choice. "You okay?" Kevin had followed him over. Marcus opened his eyes and smiled. "Yeah, I'm good." As they headed toward the exit, Marcus pulled out his phone and sent Eleanor a text just at O'Hare, past the spot where it all happened. Wanted to say, "Thank you again for everything." Her response came quickly. "I should be thanking you every day. You didn't just save my life that morning. You reminded me what my life's work should be about." Marcus pocketed his phone as they stepped outside into the cool evening air. Kevin glanced at him. "You know, the team was talking earlier about how different you are from other executives they've worked with. Different how you actually care." Kevin shrugged. "Not in the corporate we care about our mission statement way. You actually see people like that kid back there. Most people wouldn't have stopped." "Someone stopped for me once," Marcus said quietly. "When I needed it most." They reached Marcus's car, a modest sedan, not one of the luxury vehicles other executives drove. Marcus had kept his life simple. Moved to a better apartment with Danny. Got Danny the medical care he needed, save the rest. The same priorities, just with better resources. Now, as he drove Kevin back toward the city, Marcus thought about Terrell, about whether he'd made his flight, about what college he was visiting, about how one interaction, one moment of someone standing up for him, might have affected his day, his week, his sense of what was possible. Reist. The circle keeps going. Marcus realized, Eleanor helped me. Now I help others. Maybe Terrell will help someone someday. Maybe that someone will help another person. It wasn't about grand gestures or viral videos or being recognized as a hero. It was about stopping, about turning around, about choosing to see someone's humanity when it would be easier to look away. That night, Marcus sat with Danny in their new apartment's living room. Physical therapy equipment was set up in the corner, parallel bars, resistance bands, a proper mat, things Danny actually needed and could now afford. "How was work?" Danny asked, practicing arm exercises while they talked. "Good. Helped a family get to Houston for surgery, stopped a kid from missing his flight." Marcus smiled. "Normal day." Danny grinned. "Normal for you, maybe. You know, Mum called today." Marcus's smile faded. "What?" "Yeah, Mrs. Patterson gave her our new number somehow. She wanted to talk to you. I told her you'd call back." But Danny trailed off. Marcus said nothing for a long moment. "You don't have to," Danny said quietly. "After everything, she'll think about it." Marcus stood and stretched. "Right now, I'm just grateful for what we have. This apartment, your therapy, the work I get to do." He walked to the window and looked out at Chicago's skyline lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. "You ever think about it?" Danny asked that morning. "At the airport, every day. Regret it?" Marcus turned back to his brother. "Not for a second." Later, alone in his room, Marcus pulled up the photo he'd saved on his phone. It was from the company newsletter, a picture of their team standing in front of the community outreach office. 15 people, all smiling, all united by the same mission. Below the photo, the caption read, "Atlantic Airways, Community Outreach, Connecting People, Changing Lives." Marcus stared at it for a long time. He'd missed that flight to Boston 6 months ago, lost the teaching job he'd worked 2 years to achieve, spent every penny he had on a dream that slipped away in 90 seconds. But he'd found something bigger. Not just a job, a purpose. Not just helping 70 students, helping hundreds of families. Not just surviving, actually living. "You missed your flight that day," he thought, Eleanor's words echoing in his mind. "But you found your journey." Marcus set his phone down, turned off the light, and went to sleep. Tomorrow, there would be more families to help, more stories to hear, more lives to touch. And he couldn't wait. Saturday morning came bright and clear. The kind of October day Chicago saved for its best mood. Marcus stood in the kitchen, making pancakes, while Danny sat at the table scrolling through his phone, already dressed in his Chicago Bulls jersey. "You sure about Navy Pier?" Marcus flipped a pancake. "It's going to be crowded. That's the point." Danny grinned. "I've been stuck in physical therapy all week. I want to see people, eat overpriced food, ride the Ferris wheel." "The Ferris wheel isn't exactly wheelchair. They have accessible cars." I checked. Danny's grin widened. "Stop worrying. Let's just have a normal day." Marcus smiled. Normal. 6 months ago. A normal day meant working 3 jobs and barely seeing each other. Now normal meant pancakes on Saturday morning and spontaneous trips to Navy Pier. All right. "Let me finish these and we'll go." An hour later, they were on the Red Line, heading downtown. Danny's wheelchair was secured in the accessible space, and Marcus sat beside him watching the city pass by through smudged windows. "You thought about calling Mom back?" Danny asked suddenly. Marcus tensed. "Not really. She called again yesterday. Left a voicemail this time. What'd she say? That she heard you were doing well. That she's proud." Di's voice was carefully neutral. "That she wants to see us." Marcus stared out the window. "After 4 years of nothing, she suddenly wants to see us because she heard I have a good job. I know she didn't want to see us when you were in the hospital, when we were living in that tiny apartment, when we were eating ramen every night." Marcus's jaw tightened. "But now that things are good." "I know," Danny repeated quietly. "I'm not saying you should call her. I'm just telling you she reached out." They rode in silence for a few stops. "Do you want to see her?" Marcus asked finally. Danny was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. Part of me does. She's still our mum. But the other part," he trailed off, "the other part remembers sitting in that hospital bed watching her walk away." Marcus reached over and squeezed his brother's shoulder. "We don't have to decide today. Let's just enjoy the pier." They got off at Grand Avenue, and made their way east toward the lake. The weather had brought out the crowds, families with strollers, tourists with cameras, street performers on every corner. Danny navigated his wheelchair with practiced ease, and Marcus walked beside him, hands in his pockets. Navy Pier was packed. They grabbed lunch at a food stand, Chicago-style hot dogs with everything on them, and ate on a bench overlooking the water. "This is nice," Danny said between bites. "Just us. No hospitals, no therapy, no work stress." "Yeah." Marcus watched a sailboat drift across the lake. "It is." After lunch, they wandered through the shops. Danny bought a new bull's cap. Marcus found a book for Mrs. Patterson. They were arguing good-naturedly about whether to get ice cream when Marcus saw her. At first, he thought he was imagining it. A woman stood near the entrance to a souvenir shop, hunched over, wearing clothes that had seen too many washings. Her hair was grey and unkempt, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was thin, too thin, and her face had the weathered look of someone who'd spent too much time worrying and not enough time sleeping. But Marcus knew that face. He'd inherited his cheekbones from it, his eyes, his mother. She was talking to a man in an apron, the shop owner, probably. And even from 20 feet away, Marcus could see the conversation wasn't going well. The man was gesturing sharply, his face red. His mother was backing away, hands up in a placating gesture. Marcus froze. "Keep walking," he told himself. "Just turn around. She doesn't know you're here. You don't owe her anything." Marcus. Danny had stopped his wheelchair. "What's wrong?" Marcus couldn't answer. He was watching his mother, Linda Thompson, who'd once held him when he had nightmares, who'd taught him to ride a bike, who'd walked away when things got hard, being berated by a stranger. "Told you yesterday, I don't want you loitering here," the shop owner was saying loudly enough for people to stop and stare. "You're driving away customers." "I wasn't loitering," Linda said, her voice shaking. "I was just looking at. You've been just looking for 3 days now. Either buy something or get out." "I don't have," Linda's voice dropped. "I don't have any money right now. But I thought, maybe." "Then you can't be in my store." The man grabbed her arm, not roughly but firmly. "Come on, out." He started pulling her toward the exit. Something in Marcus's chest ignited. "Danny," he said quietly. "That's her." Danny's eyes went wide. "What? Where?" "The woman being thrown out of the shop." Danny looked, and Marcus saw the moment recognition hit. His brother's face went pale. "Oh my God, Mom." Linda was almost to the door now, still protesting weakly while the shop owner propelled her forward. A small crowd had gathered watching with that uncomfortable mix of curiosity and relief that it wasn't happening to them. Marcus should walk away, should take Danny and disappear into the crowd. She'd left them. She'd chosen to leave when they needed her most. But watching her being manhandled, watching people stare at her like she was trash. "Stay here," Marcus told Danny. "Marcus? Wait." But Marcus was already moving. He reached the shop entrance just as the owner pushed Linda out onto the pier. "Hey." Marcus stepped between them. "What's going on?" The shop owner glared at him. "This is none of your business, buddy. I'm making it my business. Why are you putting your hands on her? She's been loitering in my shop for days, never buying anything, making my customers uncomfortable. Was she stealing, threatening anyone, causing actual problems? She's homeless. She's driving away business. So, you're assaulting her?" Marcus's voice was cold, in front of witnesses with security, cameras recording. He pointed up at the camera mounted above the shop entrance. The owner's face went redder. I have the right to refuse service. You have the right to ask her to leave. You don't have the right to put your hands on her. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling pure security. Fine. The man threw up his hands. Fine, just get her away from my store. He stormed back inside, slamming the door. Marcus turned to his mother. Linda was staring at him, her eyes wide. She looked older than he remembered, worn down by 4 years of whatever choices had led her here. Her clothes were clean, but patched. Her shoes had holes in the soles. Thank you, she said quietly, not yet recognizing him. You didn't have to. Then their eyes met fully. Linda's face went white. Her hand flew to her mouth. Marcus. It came out as barely a whisper. Marcus said nothing. He couldn't. All the words he'd imagined saying to her over the years, the anger, the accusations, the questions, they all stuck in his throat. Marcus. Danny had wheeled up behind them. It's really you. Linda's eyes moved Danny to the wheelchair. Her face crumpled. Oh God, Danny. You're so grown up. Yeah. Well, Di's voice was tight. 4 years will do that. Linda started crying. Right there on Navy Pier, surrounded by tourists and families in the smell of popcorn and lake water, she broke down. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I never should have. I thought I couldn't. Marcus felt that familiar, hot anger rising in his chest. She's crying. She left us. She gets to cry. But underneath the anger was something else. Something uncomfortable and unwelcome. Pity. Because looking at her, now this broken, desperate woman who'd clearly hit rock bottom, Marcus saw what happened when you ran from hard things instead of facing them. Marcus, Danny said quietly, we should go. Marcus should agree, should turn around and leave her here the way she'd left them. But his feet wouldn't move. When did you eat last? The question came out before Marcus could stop it. Linda wiped her, eyes confused. What? When did you last have a meal? She looked down. Yesterday morning. The shelter serves breakfast. Come on. Marcus turned and started walking. Marcus, what are you? Linda followed hesitantly. We're getting you food. They found a quiet restaurant with outdoor seating that could accommodate Danny's wheelchair. Marcus ordered 3 meals without, asking what Linda wanted. Burgers, fries, drinks. When the food came, Linda just stared at it. Eat, Marcus said. She picked up the burger with shaking hands and took a bite, then another. Then she was eating like she was, starving, which she probably was. Danny and Marcus watched in silence. When Linda finally slowed down, she set the burger down and looked at them with red-rimmed eyes. I don't understand. Why are you helping me? I don't know, Marcus said honestly. After everything, her voice cracked, I left you, both of you, when you needed me most. I'm the worst. Yeah, Danny interrupted. You are, Linda flinched. You left me in a hospital bed. Danny continued, his voice steady but cold. I was 10 years old, paralyzed, terrified, and you walked away. You chose some guy in Ohio over your own kids. I thought you'd be better off without me. Linda was crying again. I couldn't handle it. The medical bills, the therapy, the constant doctor appointments. I was drowning, and so was Marcus. Danny's voice rose slightly. He was drowning too. He was 23 and suddenly responsible for everything. But he didn't run. He stayed. Marcus put a hand on Di's arm. It's okay. It's not okay. Danny looked at their mother. You want to know what Marcus did after you left? He dropped out of college, worked 3 jobs, slept 4 hours a night for 2 years, sold Dad's guitar, the only thing he had left of him, just to pay for my therapy. He gave up his entire life for me. Linda covered her face with her hands. And you know what? Danny's voice softened. He never once complained, never once blamed me. He just showed up every single day, because that's what you do for people you love. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Linda looked up at Marcus. You deserved better than me, she whispered. Yeah, Marcus said. We did. It wasn't cruel, just true. They sat there for a while longer. Linda picked at her fries. Danny scrolled through his phone. Marcus watched the crowds pass by on the pier. Eventually, Marcus called over the waiter and paid the bill. Then he stood. Come with us, he told Linda. Where? You need clothes and a job. Marcus, I can't let you. You don't get a choice in this. His voice was firm. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. They went to a discount store nearby. Marcus bought Linda 2 outfits, practical clothes for work. Nothing fancy but clean and professional. New shoes without holes. A winter jacket. Linda tried to refuse, but Marcus just kept adding items to the cart. Why are you doing this? She asked as they left the store, shopping bags in hand. Because someone once helped me when I needed it, Marcus said. And because you're still a human being who deserves basic dignity, even if you don't deserve my forgiveness. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Hey, Maria, it's Marcus Thompson. Yeah, from Atlantic Airways. Listen, remember how you mentioned your restaurant needs dishwashers? I have someone. She's reliable, just going through a rough patch. Tomorrow morning. Perfect. I'll text you her information. He hung up and looked at Linda. That's Maria Rodriguez. She runs a diner in Pilsen. Be there. Tomorrow at 7 a.m. The pay is minimum. Wage plus tips. It's not much, but it's a start. Linda was crying again. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Marcus's voice was quiet but firm. Just show up. Do the work. Build your life back, can I? Linda's voice trembled. Can I see you again? Both of you. Maybe we could. No. The word came out harder than Marcus intended, but he didn't soften it. Linda's face fell. But you're helping me. I thought maybe I'm helping you. Because it's the right thing to do, Marcus said. Because I won't become the kind of person who walks past someone in need. But that doesn't mean we're family. Again. Marcus, please. You made a choice. 4 years ago. Marcus's voice stayed steady. You chose to leave when things got hard. And that choice has consequences. I made a mistake. Linda's voice rose desperately. I was scared and overwhelmed, and I made a terrible mistake. But I'm your mother. No, Danny, spoke up, his voice clear. You were our mother, past tense. Mrs. Patterson has been more of a mother to us than you have. Linda looked like she'd been slapped. Marcus took a breath. When he spoke again, his voice was gentler, but no less firm. I'm grateful you gave birth to us. I'm grateful we exist. And I hope you get your life together. I really do. He held up the shopping bags. That's why I'm doing this. But gratitude isn't the same as forgiveness. And forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. So that's it. Linda's voice broke. You help me and then we never see each other again. That's it. Marcus set the bags down on a bench. You left us behind 4 years ago. Now we're leaving you behind. But at least we're leaving you with a meal, clothes, and a job, which is more than you left us with. He turned to Danny. Ready to go? Danny nodded. They started to leave. Wait. Linda grabbed the shopping bags and ran after them. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but please. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I think about you every day. I dream about that hospital, about walking away, about... She couldn't finish. She collapsed onto the nearest bench, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. People were staring now. Marcus felt that familiar urge to help, to fix, to make it better. But some things couldn't be fixed. Some choices couldn't be undone. Marcus knelt down beside the bench, eye level with his mother. I need you to hear this, he said quietly. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm not trying to hurt you, but Danny and I have built a life without you, a good life, and we can't rebuild it with someone who might walk away again when things get hard. I wouldn't. You already did. Marcus's voice was gentle, but immovable. And I can't risk Danny going through that again, or myself. He stood up. Thank you for giving birth to us, Marcus said. Genuinely, thank you, because Danny is the best thing in my life, and he wouldn't exist without you. Linda looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. But you chose to leave, and that means you chose to not be part of what we became after you left. You don't get to come back now and claim the good parts. Marcus reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card, his Atlantic Airways card with his direct number on it. If you need help finding housing, or if something goes wrong with the job, you can call this number once, just once. My assistant will connect you with resources. He set the card on the bench beside her. But don't call to talk. Don't call to apologize. Don't call looking for a relationship, because that door is closed. He started to walk, away again, Danny rolling beside him. Marcus. Linda's voice cracked. What if? What if I get better? What if I prove I've changed? Marcus stopped but didn't turn around. Then I'll be happy for you, he said from a distance. They left, her there on the bench, surrounded by shopping bags, holding his business card, crying in the October sunshine. Marcus and Danny didn't speak until they were blocks away near the Red Line entrance. You okay? Danny asked. Finally. Marcus wasn't sure. His chest felt tight. His eyes burned. But underneath all of that was something solid, something certain. Yeah, he said. I think I am. That was really hard to watch. Yeah, but it was the right thing. Danny looked up at his brother, helping her, but also walking away. Marcus nodded. You can be kind to someone without letting them hurt you. Again, they caught the train home, sat in comfortable silence as the city passed by outside. That night, after Danny had gone to bed, Marcus sat in the living room, thinking about his mother, about the woman she used to be, and the woman she'd become, about choices and consequences, and the thin line between compassion and enabling. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Maria Rodriguez. Your friends? Mother came in for the job. Started her. Tonight. Actually, we had a rush and needed help. She's doing okay. Wanted you to know. Marcus typed back. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate it. You're a good son, Maria replied, even when she doesn't deserve it. Marcus set his phone down. He wasn't sure if he was a good son, but he knew he was the kind of person who stopped when someone needed help. Even when that someone had hurt him, even when it was hard, that was enough. That had to be enough. Outside, Chicago hummed with its usual Saturday night energy. Somewhere out there, his mother was washing dishes in a diner, starting over. Somewhere out there, families he'd helped through Atlantic Airways were living lives they almost lost. Somewhere out there, Terrell was, probably touring colleges, his path made a little easier by one moment of someone standing up for him. And here in this apartment he shared with his brother Marcus, sat in the quiet and felt something close to peace. He'd missed that flight 6 months ago, lost the job he'd worked 2 years to achieve, saved a stranger's life, found his purpose, and tonight he'd faced the ghost of his past and walked away with his dignity intact. Not a bad day, he thought. Not a bad day at all. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.